Atelier is a series of RPGs that have always struggled with performance on handheld consoles, but the Nintendo Switch 2 provides stability to that expectation of frame drops and stuttering. But how much does it help? Let's go back and take a look at how I've gotten Atelier Yumia to run on the Nintendo Switch versus the Nintendo Switch 2. Let's begin with loading. While it's true that fast travel is shockingly fast on Switch with you jumping around the open world in as little as 3 to 4 seconds, getting into the game was not. On Switch 1, if you want to load from the Switch's UI to the title menu, you're going to be waiting a full 2 minutes just to be able to get to your save files. That's 2 minutes of sitting and watching developer logos and loading screens process. Over on the Switch 2, it only takes 40 seconds to get to the title screen from the UI. That is 1/3 of the time it takes on Switch 1. Loading save files is just as improved. On Switch 1, my save into Rhizoma Thicket loads in roughly 40 seconds total, which admittedly isn't terrible. But on Switch 2, it loads in 14 seconds. That's just slightly over 1/3 of the wait time on Switch 1. A much bigger improvement on load times than these backwards compatible titles normally get. But frame rate was the game's real problem, and it's very apparent from the moment you walk around. On Switch 1, you'll see frames constantly stutter and drop almost everywhere. Camera pans are a big culprit of this when you're wandering the open world, but it even happens a lot when you're inside buildings like the Atelier base and looking around, having huge dips in frame rate whenever the camera moves. The game's still playable because this game's performance mode keeps the game at 30 FPS as much as it can, but some areas are very choppy. The Switch 2 pretty much comes in and fixes everything, though this game does have a 30 FPS cap, so it cannot go beyond that. Here is walking into the Atelier and looking around on Switch 2 in performance mode, and there aren't any frame drops anymore. It is smooth and locked at 30 FPS. It's so good that I decided to only use quality mode when playing on the Switch 2. And with that quality mode, venturing out into the open world has that smooth 30 FPS stick and stay smooth. Running around the woods, jumping off of cliffs, running past a bunch of monsters, collecting materials, etc. The Switch 2 keeps the frame rate nice and steady. Even battles with all of the crazy effects of skills like Bullet Rain maintain that smoothness where the Switch 1 has a lot of choppiness. I was expecting it to be a stable 30 on Switch 2, but wasn't sure if it would keep up in quality mode, but it does. There's not really anything else to say about performance, so here is a side-by-side comparison of the game running on Switch 1 and Switch 2. And there you have it. If you're interested in more of these comparisons, check out my video on Neptunia Game Maker Revolution. And if you like the content, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next one.